my name is Shelby, and this is my persuasive speech.
Say hello, neighbors.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
And then there's me.
Okay, imagine this. There's a student sitting at their desk, their eyes wide, one hand clutching a number 2 pencil, the other gripping their Scantron. Their heart and mind race in unison as they contemplate their skills and capabilities to perform well. They glance up to their teacher for reassurance, only to find the same nervous expression plaguing him or her. There's a cloud of pressure looming above this classroom and so many others across the nation. This is standardized testing. Today I want to discuss the negative effects of standardized testing and how it's affecting our teachers, students, and schools with the amount of weight that's being placed on these tests, and how our education environment can be improved with the decrease or the removal of these standardized tests. This testing is pressuring teachers to teach to the test, and it's filling classroom time with boring practices that fail to engage students. This is all caused by the heavy amount of weight that's placed on these tests, as both teachers and students fear the outcome of these tests. Therefore, a balance must be achieved where there is a common platform for them to be assessed on without the pressure and weight associated with standardized testing. This increase in weight placed on tests is leading to drill and practice type procedures. Teachers feel restricted and frustrated as they can't be creative with their lessons, as they feel pressured to make sure that their students are prepared. Therefore, there's no interactive and creative lesson plans that these teachers are capable of. This increase in time spent on these tests, according to the Global Post, has even led to some schools changing their curriculum scope and sequence to allow for more time for test preparation. That's taking away from curriculum that could help students develop their higher level thinking. And instead, it's just used to prepare for the test that just takes place. Also, students are also being frustrated. It's not just teachers. For example, a student who might challenge and struggle through school can be frustrated as they're faced with performing well on a test that's way beyond their skill level. On the other hand, a high-achieving student also feels frustrated as they feel like they're being held back and moving at what they consider to be a slow pace. Also, News Geography has found that with the increase of standardized testing, there's also been an increase in dropout rates. Coincidence? I think not. On top of the time it's taken away from more beneficial lessons, there's also been found that there's not many positive effects that come from this. And these tests don't even evaluate some of the most important aspects of a child's education, such as creativity, innovation, and a love of learning. So if these tests aren't evaluating some of the most important aspects of a child's education, why are they asked to take it so many times? Also, the Washington Post found that a student in Florida could be subjected to standardized testing up to 62 times in a year. That's a lot of testing. So we've already discussed that there's a lot of time for test prep, and now we see that there's a lot of time in actual test taking as well. So in summary, the issues with standardized testing include time used for test taking and test preparation, limitations on teachers and their creativity with lesson plans, not challenging students enough, and time theft for more beneficial lessons. So the root of all these issues and problems comes from the amount of weight that's placed on these tests. According to the Save Texas Schools website, the Texas legislature has decided to make the Texas standardized test, or the STAR test, account for 15% of a student's final grade. How can they make a test whose material is uncertain account for 15% of a student's grade? On top of that, one single test can keep a student from moving on to the next grade level, even if they performed well in the coursework the whole entire year. It can even keep a student from graduating high school. Even if they've had a passing performance their whole entire education, this one test can keep them moving on to the rest of their future, and that's absurd. The Austin American-Statesman concurred, saying that test-based accountability systems that attach weighty consequences to students' test results for school district staff, teachers, students, and public officials are becoming increasingly institutionalized in the education system. There are probably fewer places other than Texas where the stakes are as high. So we all know the saying, everything's bigger in Texas. But unfortunately, this also rings true with the weight associated with standardized testing. The Statesman also found that there is little to no positive effects on a child's education with the implementation of standardized testing. And it even leads to to teachers teaching to the test and even trying to game the system, which means the results from these tests are inflated and not even a true accurate representation of our school's performance. So on a large scale, it would be hopeful to completely remove standardized testing and maybe implement something called portfolio-based assessment that's suggested by a website called Rethinking Schools. This assessment relies on samples of a student's work and records kept by the teacher. Then, at the end of each grading period, the teacher would use a grading form and evaluate the portfolio. Although this may be a little bit more objective and time-consuming on the teacher's part, I really feel that it helps to benefit the student as a whole, and that's whose interest we need to keep in heart. According to Democracy Now!, some people are even beginning to successfully boycott standardized testing, as they argue that private schools are able to avoid this whole entire game of standardized testing. Rather, they focus on their students' critical thinking skills, creativity, and they help prepare them to be our future's leaders. People are arguing that there's no reason that public schools can't do the same. Sorry, that was my...
Bitsy.
On a national level, implementing...
Can you grab her?
Sorry.
Just grab her and hold her.
On a national level, implementing such a program might be a little bit difficult. So a less extreme way to do this would be to implement or decrease the amount of weight that's associated with standardized tests. This, therefore, would decrease the amount of pressure that both teachers and students are feeling, and that would also decrease the issues that come along with standardized testing. I personally see this as the most likely and beneficial way to solve this problem. And but it doesn't completely change our system. It just changes it a little bit, but we might see huge results. This would have to happen at a local level with our state and our school districts. Personally, and when I graduate from school, I want to try and make sure my students are prepared for these standardized tests, while also keeping in mind they're not the most important thing. And I'm going to strive to make sure that I give my students an opportunity to also experience higher level thinking lesson plans as well. So in review, studies have shown that these standardized tests do have some negative effects in our education system, affecting both our teachers and our students. On top of that, they don't really offer very many benefits, so why are we allowing it to take up so much of our time? So we need to either remove them completely or decrease the amount of weight associated with them, therefore alleviating a lot of the issues. Now we have discussed the negative effects of standardized testing. Now our teachers, students, and schools are affected by the weight associated with these tests, and how our education system can benefit from the removal or decrease in standardized testing. There obviously are some issues that need to be sorted out, but I know that if we keep our students' best interests at heart, we will come to a conclusion that allows for there to be a common platform of assessment while alleviating some of the pressures of testing. Q&A?
So I have a question. Shelby, when you were in elementary school, what is your memories, what was your experience with standardized testing in general?
I remember being in 3rd grade about to take the standardized test for the first time, and I think that the weight associated with standardized tests had gone up a lot since then, but I remember being so nervous and terrified because it's built up so much, so I definitely can relate to what students are going through now, but I think it's even been increased since then, so I can see how it can definitely be very challenging for teachers to get their students to feel confident, because I didn't even feel confident when the stakes were smaller.
I have a question as well. So, if you were to be a teacher, then would you rather work at a private school where you just wouldn't have to deal at all with the standardized testing, or would you prefer to work at a public school where you would need to prepare for them?
Personally, I just want a job, so I would take either, but I definitely see the aspect of private schools not having standardized testing as a big pressure and load off, and I feel like I can really focus on my students and their best interests and preparing them to be well-rounded members of society rather than just preparing them for one test. Thank you.